Hi guys, welcome back. So, painful day today, huh? Everything was dipping quite fast and quite heavy. LKCO just dipped to 1.8. So just now on the Discord, when I was asked, is it okay to buy the dip? I said the support is at 1.81, so it's worth a shot for the price. It was at 1.83. So I said price-wise it's worth a shot. But don't expect it to rally anytime soon because I don't see it happening anytime in the near term. I've been saying this for the past couple weeks, ever since on this day. Just look at the volume and the bull trap. This would take a while to digest. So don't be surprised if LKCO stay down and spend like a couple weeks or months to cool off. It's possible. And don't be surprised if it reached back to 1.7. But I think it's more likely that it would get supported by the 1.8 support and bounce back up. And even so, there are a lot of resistance above that. And in this video, I want to address some of the concern and risk, and I do see investors getting fearful, and not just the retail investors but also institutions. I'll explain. I also want to talk a little bit about why Cathy Wood said that the valuation needs to reset for Chinese stocks and why they would probably remain down, as well as answer a little bit questions and do some updates on the other stock. Okay, now first, how does what happened with Didi affect LKCO? And it is not because of the crackdown on the anti-probe and not because of the regulation on the data of more than 1 million users. Because Didi is a B2C business and LKCO is B2B. They are completely different. But the relationship is in the HD Maps license. According to the Chinese law, the detailed information, statistics, specs cannot be revealed for the HD map in China. So that is why the Chinese government had always been very careful with the HD map license to restrict very limited number of companies to have this license in order to scan the HD map. There are different grades of this license. In the past 20 years, only 20 companies got this license, and Didi is one of them. They were granted this license back in 2016. Here we can see Imago got this license back in 1997. So we are talking about HD map that had the precision of less than 10 centimeters tolerance. So that's why the Chinese government had talks with Didi to try to postpone the IPO, because they were one of the companies that had this license of the HD map. And information or data collected like this to be revealed to the US might be a big threat to the Chinese. Now that would raise concern for LKCO because their license is higher grade than what Didi has. So Didi is 1 out of 20 and Imago is 1 out of 5. The license that's even more important and critical than Didi's, because they can put it into commercial use by selling their map services. So I think it's expected that investors draw this link between Didi and LKCO because they do have quite similarity in this case, and worry that the Chinese government would crack down on LKCO because it's listed in the US. Now with that said, there is also clear difference between Didi and LKCO. First of all, Didi is a big company with many more than 1 million users. They collected data that's beyond just the map information, but also connect to the identity of all the users. To register a Didi account, you need the phone number to register. And in China, all the phone number is directly linked to the identity of the citizen. So that is why holding near 500 million users' data directly linked to their actual identity, knowing all the routes tied with the HD map information, that would be a much bigger threat to leak any kind of information out. Versus LKCO is not a B2C business model, but B2B, business to business. So they mostly deal with bigger clients like the car brands. And the second thing is Didi had a very suspicious IPO process. They had to do it before July 1st, the 100-year anniversary of the CCP. They had to get it over with, doing it in a rush and low profile. And according to the Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act established last year, the companies listed in US stock exchange were required to provide the specific that the US asked for auditing purposes, and also to reveal some extra information, for example, whether there is anyone from the CCP involved in the company at all. So it looks like a Foreign Companies Accountable Act, but in the specific, you can see that it's directly targeting Chinese companies because they specifically said CCP. So that is why it is very questionable why and how Didi got the IPO approval from the SEC so smoothly. And it is questionable whether they had for real provided the specifics or detail that they were not supposed to give out. And what's even more suspicious was that how could they get the approval of the whole IPO so fast within 20 days? Seems like they make the decision to get the IPO before the 100-year event, and right away they apply for it, and right away they got approved, and right away they were listed. So how could they get the green light so fast? This makes the IPO of Didi very, very suspicious. So that's why I think for now, what the government is cracking down on Didi, it seems like it's more than 70% directly targeting Didi versus other companies. But it doesn't matter for the market sentiments. They drive the link together, they see the risk, they try to stay away from it, avoid the potential risk, and that is reasonable. So it is expected that money want to stay away just to be safe first. I would say it's understandable. On top of that, they are not giving out the earning. I know a lot of people also feel very anxious about the earning. Why they're not releasing earning yet? And this goes together with Luckin Coffee. It's the same thing. They have not released their latest earning. And I think it does have something to do with what happened with Didi, because what the government is doing to Didi is also showing a lot of the other companies that they need to respect the Chinese law. The Chinese law said that whatever you reveal to other countries, you need to get approved by the Chinese law first. You need to apply to reveal this kind of information that you may or may not reveal. So I think a lot of the Chinese companies might be extra careful now to try to communicate with the Chinese government first before they hand in somewhat important information to the US side. That would explain why LKCO is not releasing their earning yet, and we don't know when. So this would give out more uncertainties to investors. That's why in a short term, I don't see LKCO having a rally. So if you want to stay safe, you need to factor all the risks I just went through with you. But for now, Nasdaq is not paying as much attention to the smaller companies. And we just went through the whole DOD's case, and I think the risk of getting delisted would be less right now because all of these companies that's already listed, they have 3 years in a row to comply with the US law of the PCAOB, and if they don't comply for 3 years, then the company would risk getting delisted. So there is still time. Hopefully, the two countries can find solutions for that. Unless right now the political storm gives out more order, like for example, Chinese government order all the Chinese companies to be delisted from the US and go back to the Hong Kong or Chinese stock exchange. That would for sure drive everything down, and not just LKCO. You can see that everything can crash suddenly because it would mean everything getting delisted. But that would be the worst case scenario. Just like Luckin last year when it announced to get delisted, it dropped 54% in one day, as low as 95 cents, because people were too afraid of the uncertainties. Some of them cannot trade OTC. But even Tencent is traded in the OTC, in the pink sheet market, same as Luckin Coffee. But still there were many investors internationally that still owns TCEHY, the ADR of Tencent traded in OTC. It's just that it would need time to digest and pick up the valuation. And probably right now it would look somewhat more safe than the other Chinese companies that are not listed in China or Hong Kong. The thing is, getting the company mainly listed in mainland China or Hong Kong and traded ADR in the US stock market might look more safe right now because it's getting the least political issue. So if Neo and Xiaopeng and Didi all get delisted from the US, they would use the way of Tencent to remain listed in US, and that would in the maximum degree reduce the political risk between US and Chinese relationship. But in the short term, if that happens, you can refer to what happened to Luckin because it happens too sudden and everything can crash altogether. If the Chinese government really announced that I require every Chinese companies to get delisted in the US as the worst case scenario. But with that said, when you look back for Luckin, that would have been the best buying opportunity. Look at that. From 95 cents to now, it's up 15 times in 1 year. Today there was a news article shared on Discord saying Kathy's ARK loses patience with Chinese stocks. On my weekend video, I also shared that ARK had been selling Tencent. They sold a majority of their holding on Tencent, and also JD and PDD. So here she said that there would be a valuation reset in the Chinese tech sector. And from a valuation point of view, these stocks have come down and again probably would remain down. So even though she is usually optimistic into the Chinese techs and also not afraid of the crackdown before, because last time when there was a huge dip from Alibaba's anti-probe from the government at the end of December, Tencent and Baba, all of these Chinese companies had big dip, and ARK Invest had been buying a lot of Tencent and some Baba as well, but this time they have been selling it, and she did in fact kept the loss on Tencent during the dip of last week because the selling price is lower than last year when they were building their position. So I think this valuation reset sounds to me like what a Chinese institution would say. And I think she would get insider news from the Chinese institutions who happen to know more about the investment atmosphere within China. And in the ARK Next Generation Internet ETF, the China's weight has been dropping from 8% in February to 1%. And it's the lowest since 2014. So she's reducing the internet sector for the Chinese stocks. Last time I shared this, I made a confusion. And ARK did not sell out their Baidu position. One of the comments had corrected me. They still own Baidu in the ARK Q ETF, and it is the number 6 position. JD.com is the number 2 right after Tesla, so can be considered the biggest position. So it seems like she is being more careful and staying away from the Chinese internet. But she is still holding for the other sector like artificial intelligence, logistic platform, because JD is building a lot more infrastructure in the logistic also. They're not only invested in JD.com in US, they also have been buying the dip in JD Logistic in the Hong Kong market. They also had been buying JD Logistic, a company owned by JD.com that were separately listed in the Hong Kong market. So they were not selling everything out of China, but more like choosing the sector they want to be in. And I can agree on that because there are certain sectors that China might be leading, and there are other sectors that might be different. The fact that she only mentioned valuation reset and did not get into many details, I think it's because she is too afraid to say something sensitive. And my own understanding is that she's worried that these big tech giants will lose their dominance position because they are losing their powerful tool driven by the anti-probe crackdown. And also for a lot of the companies like Tencent and Alibaba, if they still remain such a high percentage of foreign investment while they're holding such massive data and the power of payments. Alibaba and Tencent hold more than 90% of the whole mobile payment in China. So for such dominant position while being owned by foreign companies mostly, it's getting into a bigger problem. So I think that is what she is concerned for the valuation reset. I think this can only happen in 2 ways. One is that the tax would reduce foreign investments proportion, increase the percentage of Chinese investments. And 2 would be other players that can replace some of their function, some of their business. So I think it's gonna be either one of these 2 ways. The first way is for the share price to get pinned down more, foreign companies sell more, and the Chinese companies buy more. Second way is that directly their valuation will come down. But in any ways, it's understandable for ARK to be a little bit more concerned at this point, and I think they're not the only one, because even the Chinese institutions would think right now it's still unclear, it's still a lot of uncertainties, so it's better to stay cautious. But it doesn't mean that she's not bullish in all the technology, all the sectors. I do think there are some sectors that would be leading and remain more advanced in China, and China would be the first country to roll out. Chinese people would adapt to that more and faster. For example, the autonomous drive, the drones or the air mobility, the logistic, using drones to change e-commerce. There are some things that I really admire ARK Invest for very, very much, and there are some smaller things that I disagree with them. I agree that Baidu has really good chance to have a turnaround with their AI technology and autonomous drive. And I agree JD is growing their influence on the e-commerce in China because they have the infrastructure built similar business model like Amazon in US. But I still don't get why they remain zero position on any of the Chinese EV like NIO, BYD. I know ARK is bullish, extremely bullish on Tesla, but they also had admitted that Tesla would get less market share in China. And I also don't get why they don't invest in Xiaomi, because I think Xiaomi's ecosystem would grow more and more influential into everyday life. And it's getting to be one of the giants of the big techs. So I don't understand her China strategy 100%. The last two videos I uploaded for Zepp was recorded before the event yesterday, and let's update a little bit on that. Next beat, they have launched the new chips that is much more powerful and even more power saving. The whole OS system takes up 55 megabytes, so reduced by 90% since the previous model, and it's about 2% of the Apple Watch. So much smaller size and more efficiency. But other than the technology specifics, they really focus much more on the health this time, and had helped us draw a connection between their several actions in the last couple months, all the acquisition and investment. They help us connect the dots, and I'm quite happy about that, and really appreciate the fact that they can test the blood pressure, because it's striking that 1 out of 4 people have blood pressure problem and require frequent monitor. And for the products to have this function, I think it can be very useful. And it's not just that, it's also the MRI machine that is portable. It is the first portable MRI equipment in the whole world that can be compared to medical grade. So it's very impressive, including artificial intelligence technology in there. So very impressive about Zepp. You know, this is some milestones, top 4 of the whole global sale. As of Q1, they totally sold 173 million units. They spent much more than the new startup on R&D and have applied for over 1,000 patents. After the event, next beat yesterday, it went up 2%. If this happened to a US stock, US company in a normal market, I think this is worth 20% at least of a jump. Or even if Zepp is listed in China, it would be a much more response like this, because it is quite a breakthrough in the industry and technology. You can just compare to Yitong, the company that Zepp invested in heavily a couple months ago. And now we know why, because they had granted Yitong the right to use their IP, and with this they can work with EV companies, car companies, to have a health management system set up in the car. I am quite happy about that, because it had directly answered to my question before, and also reinforced my vision on Zepp and also the smart city ecosystem. Many months ago, I shared a vision with you and said that the wearable device like Zepp can connect to the whole smart city ecosystem, connect to EV, connect to other Internet of Things, other platforms, etc. And I gave an example of someone having a heart attack in the car, and the car would take this person to the hospital directly, and all the traffic would let this go smoothly, so then the patient can be sent to get the fastest treatment possible. And it sounded like a crazy vision back then, but it's slowly coming true, and I'm very excited for that. Even during the event, the CEO of Zepp had said that many EV brands had approached them to work with them for this. So I'm more convinced on Zepp and the vision of the smart cities. With that said, look at the share price movement of Yitong. In just a couple days, 3-4 days, it had grown 40% plus. And that would be more a normal reaction for the market. What's happening to Zepp is not normal for me. I think this company is so undervalued. And when the market wakes up on Zepp, it would have good response, and it would pick up what it has lost over the years. EH is dropping with no volume. This is, for me, just responding to the fear, the negative sentiments for the political risk. So I'm not worried about this. I would say take the chance to buy the dip. If it can get to 29 to 30, that's even better. Again, we can get the license in short to medium term, so I don't worry about this at all. NCTY is breaking the support of the previous low, which is 10.7. So it's up to you if you want to get out first and wait, because if it doesn't get above the support within 1 to 3 days, it can reach lower support to 8. So it's up to you whether you want to get out and enter later. And it's the same thing with CAN. CAN's support is still at 6 to 6.6. Let's see if it can hold. If not, it would be a problem as well. 6.3 should be a strong support. Look at this biggest volume throughout the whole time it was listed. On this day, the highest price was 6.3, and today the lowest got to 6.3. So if there is no further black swan, it might get supported here. It also depends on Bitcoin too, but risk reward ratio, it's okay. If you buy the dip now, you can set a stop loss slightly below the support. If you get stop loss out, you can see and observe whether it can stand back above the support first. TAL looks like it has formed the bottom. I said this a few days ago on Discord, and still looks like it. So it's still risky, but at least right now it has shown some signs of bottom. Now that's it for today, and if you have enjoyed this video, please give me a big like and write me a great comment, and I'll see you in my next video. That's it, guys. Hope you can find my videos helpful. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and give me a big like. Thank you.